In the early Ming dynasty, there lived a young scholar named Wenqing in a small village in Jiangnan. His family had been farmers for generations, and though they lived a humble life, his parents taught him to read and write from an early age, hoping he would one day pass the imperial examination and bring honor to their family. Wenqing was a gifted child with an extraordinary memory that allowed him to master his studies quickly, earning him the title of prodigy among the villagers. He had great ambitions, determined to earn a high rank and lift his family out of poverty, as well as to bring prosperity to the people. However, as Wenqing grew older, he began to perceive the injustices and instability in the world. Corruption was rampant throughout the court. Bribery and power struggles plagued the government, and many officials cared only for their own wealth, turning a blind eye to the suffering of the people. Despite his passion for knowledge, Wenqing often found himself disheartened by the thought of these corrupt officials. He frequently pondered whether, even if he did achieve success, he could truly change such a broken system. One day, the village was struck by a severe drought. The fields cracked, the crops withered, and the villagers could not harvest any food, plunging their lives into hardship. Wenqing watched as his fellow villagers desperately searched for sustenance, receiving no aid from the local government. Filled with sorrow and anger, he decided to appeal to the county magistrate, pleading for funds to provide relief for the people. To his dismay, the county officials were indifferent, and the magistrate turned a deaf ear to his requests. It was then that Wenqing fully understood that most officials were selfish and had no intention of rescuing the people from their plight. At the point of complete despair, Wenqing encountered a traveling monk. The monk had a kind and serene face, carried a staff, and wore simple robes, yet he exuded an air of tranquility. Seeing the young man's worry, the monk smiled and asked, "Young man, why are you so troubled?" Wenqing poured out his frustrations and disappointments to the monk, confessing that he had lost faith in the world and did not know which path to take. The monk nodded and said, "Indeed, the world is full of impermanence and suffering, but this is the result of the karma of all beings. The corrupt officials you see are driven by their own greed and will ultimately face the consequences of their actions. As a person of wisdom, you should cultivate compassion and guide others toward goodness. Instead of hating those who do wrong, why not try to change them with acts of kindness?" Wenqing thought for a moment and asked, "But how can I, an ordinary scholar, make any difference in such a corrupt world?" The monk smiled. "Do you think the government is the only way to change the world? True virtue lies not in power and fame, but in the liberation of the mind. Worldly wealth and glory are as fleeting as passing clouds. Only by cultivating your heart can you achieve true freedom. If you are willing to let go of your attachments and follow the path of the Buddha, you may find a brighter road within the dust of this world." Wenqing was silent for a moment, seemingly grasping the deeper meaning behind the monk's words. Over the years, he had been fixated on fame and fortune, trying to achieve his ideals through external accomplishments, but had neglected the cultivation of his own mind and good intentions. Suddenly, he felt a sense of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted, and all his worries melted away. "Master," Wenqing said respectfully, "you are right. Fame and fortune are fleeting. I am willing to follow the Buddha's teachings, abandon worldly troubles, and seek true spiritual liberation." The monk nodded and smiled. "If that is so, then come with me. The gates of the Buddha's teachings are open, waiting for those who are destined." From that day on, Wenqing abandoned all worldly pursuits and followed the monk to an ancient temple in the mountains. He shaved his head and became a monk, taking the Buddhist name, Wukong. In the temple, Wukong diligently practiced, reciting sutras and meditating day and night. He often descended the mountain to help the poor, teaching them to accumulate virtue through good deeds and to practice compassion. Over time, his inner turmoil gradually dissipated, replaced by a profound sense of compassion and forgiveness toward all beings. Years later, Wukong became a renowned monk, known far and wide. Both the poor and the wealthy came to seek his wisdom on life. Through his own experience, he taught them that the pursuit of fame and fortune would never bring true happiness. Only by letting go of attachments could one attain inner peace. He advised people to treat others with kindness, act with wisdom, and integrate good deeds into daily life. Only then could they truly change themselves, and in turn, the world around them. Wukong's reputation reached the local government and even caught the attention of the emperor himself. The emperor sent an envoy to visit Wukong and seek his counsel on how to govern the country. Wukong smiled and said, "The way to govern a country is to lead by virtue. If you wish for lasting peace and stability, you must promote benevolent governance and love the people as your own children. If officials can let go of greed and act with compassion, the people will naturally live in peace, and the nation will thrive." Deeply moved, the emperor returned to the capital and began implementing reforms, cracking down on corruption and promoting benevolent policies, which gradually brought stability to the lives of the people. Meanwhile, Wukong continued his practice in the temple until he peacefully passed away. His wisdom and compassion were passed down through the generations, becoming a beacon of light for countless people lost in the darkness, guiding them toward a brighter future. This story teaches us that although suffering and injustice in the world are inevitable, each person can choose to face them with kindness and wisdom. No matter the circumstances, only by letting go of attachments and doing good can one find true inner peace and happiness. Wukong's life is the perfect example of this principle, showing us how to maintain serenity in a chaotic world and how compassion can ultimately lead to spiritual liberation.